and get this going. So you should be seeing my screen. I think I had confirmation of that earlier. You're seeing the screen, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, great. You're looking at a couple of shots made during our last MAD Day, Microwave Activity Day. This was this past Sunday. And so it was an exercise to try out some parking garages. But we've already got a couple of garages that we can operate from, and we keep looking to curate more so that we can have vetted locations for rovers to go to for not only their own testing, but also during the 10 gigahertz and up contest. Because the more rovers that are out there, the more initials we can get, the more call signs by band, and that's the way to bump the score. Plus, these are great locations when we find them. So the one on the left turns out to be the Presbyterian Hospital. I think it's called Texas Presbyterian Hospital in Plano, just off Parker Road. And the right-hand dish is a 47 gigahertz dish pointed to Al Ward, and the left-hand dish is pointed to Keith, WB5ZDP, and we worked 100% on all three bands, 10, 24, and 47. Right in the corner of this parking garage, which is very, very large, and we're up on the 6th floor. It's a great location. I gave it 5 stars. And then on the right side, this was the final stop of the day. We checked a couple of not garage locations that I had never been to before, but we're just checking to see how well they worked. And, this time of year, we don't have foliage on the trees, but the location to the right really was quite good to the hub of activity around Al and Greg and Scott. And that right-hand dish is pointed to Al. You can see that horizon. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but it's way out there, probably 15 miles. And then the left-hand dish is pointed to the Denton Beacon, and there are 2 dishes here. One we're going to talk about is a new dish to me, and it's called the K4QF Trojan dish, and we'll get to that here in just a moment. So our agenda looks kind of brief. The announcement section will take some time to work through. We have some significant material there. And then just the one technical program on the dish build, plus some show and tell and some business meeting items. One announcement here is that the Cowtown Hamfest was held in January with NTMS presentations from Al Ward, Ken Britton, and myself, and a lunch meeting took place that on the Saturday of the Hamfest at Hickory Stick Barbecue in Everman. That is our tradition, and we went to that. That was basically between the Hamfest and the barbecue. It was our meeting time for January. So I wanted to just briefly show the agenda, because if you weren't at lunch, then you didn't see this. We announced the next Microwave Activity Day. Jerry, we called out. He has a 10, 24, 47 gigahertz rover up and running. Keith, WB5ZDP, has his 24 gigahertz system on the tower, and it's sounding good. We just heard him make several contacts this past weekend. Greg, Alpha 5 Charlie, has rebuilt the 24 gigahertz beacon. Al Ward had reported the signal strength is good. Winter Field Day was a subject that we mentioned because there was a club near Meridian, I think it is, that was attempting to get, I think it's 5 contacts on UHF. I don't know that this actually happened, because that was the weekend of the really, really bad ice storm. There was a beacon work trip that was scheduled. That has been rescheduled. Al has something to say about that coming up. And then we announced the next Zoom meeting, which we are participating in now. And then there was a final plea there for dues to be paid. You can use PayPal. There are multiple means to do this now, and we'll touch base on that later in the meeting. I also showed some website stats. This was about halfway through January. So you can see in the far left-hand column the month, and then you can see the hits. That's pretty much all I think you can take away from this. It's just, daily average hits are somewhere between, in this graph, it's 1,290 to 1,800. So relatively speaking, I don't know how that would compare to other key websites that folks use, maybe some of the Southern Cal or Northern Cal microwave club websites, but that seems like a lot to me to have somewhere around 1,500 hits per day average. And of course, this is one of the things that your dues pay for is the hosting of the website. And now I'm going to turn this over to Al, who has a set of announcements. Al, just tell me when you want me to advance the slides.
All right, sounds good. All right, the first thing I wanted to talk about were some of the conferences that are going on this year. We start out here in a couple months, mainly in April. The Southeast VHF Conference is happening in Macon, Georgia, and that's been a Southeast VHF related conference, and we always like to attend that. There's good Southern hospitality down there, and of course I've never been to Macon, Georgia, so always look for an opportunity to visit these places. A week after that is the News Conference in Windsor, Connecticut, and I've attended that a couple of times in the past, and I really wanted to go back this year again, but I can't do two conferences, one weekend apart. But another good group of guys. It's run by guys like Tom Williams, Mickey. I can't remember. Oh, there are a couple other guys in there, but Tom Williams and Paul Wade are notables, and they always do a nice job. The end of May, a lot of us, or several of us, are going to the Canary Islands for the EME conference. This conference is held every 2 years, and time does fly when you're having fun. It just seemed like we were in Trenton, New Jersey the other day, but that was in 24. So 2026, it'll be in Tenerife, and looking forward to that. It's actually at a 5-star hotel. I've never stayed at a 5-star hotel before. And then the Aurora Conference. That is a yearly event, a daily event that the Northern Lights guys put on, and a combination of some presentations, and I also think some antenna measuring going on. And if you happen to be up there at that time of the year and you can drop in, I think that would probably be beneficial. And then every year, the Central States VHF Society meets. And this year it's in a different area, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And it'll be at the end of July, and I'm planning on being there. And microwave update. Every year it moves around the U.S. This year it's going to be in Rochester, New York. We met in Rochester, New York, I think twice before for MUD. And that's always a good event. Put on by guys like Dave Halliday and his crew up there. It's very much a VHF, well, it's a Rochester VHF club, I guess, is what's promoting it. And so we're looking forward to that. Go ahead to the next slide, Jim. And then the year after that, it's going to be in Big D. So it'll probably still be in the October timeframe. Last time we tried to get it late enough that it wouldn't be so darn hot, but that barely didn't happen the last time we were here in Dallas. That was in 2019. And we'll probably meet somewhere over by the DFW airport. That's always convenient, good shuttles, and you don't necessarily have to rent yourself a car. So be looking forward to that, but that's in 27. Go ahead, Jim. Just to cover some other Hamfests. I mean, there's all sorts of Hamfests, but I put these down as notables Hamfests that have VHF oriented sessions, and it's not all inclusive. And I'll apologize to anybody here from California. I'm not familiar with their schedule and whatnot. Even though I know Tony and I have been out to a Hamfest out there in the past or conference. It was a microwave update. So, but I'm not too tuned in on the events going on out there. Of course, Cowtown and Fort Worth in January, we had a VHF oriented or VHF slash microwave oriented session. And today is the Orlando Hamvention is going on as we speak. And I know are a couple of sessions down there, VHF oriented. And Dayton, Xenia, always has some nice events. I mean, I know Tony Emmanuel has orchestrated some of those in the past. And then also Huntsville. I put in a plug there for you, Ben. Unfortunately, this Hamfest is right during the first half of the 10 gig and above contest. So we generally just kind of stay put here. But if I had a chance to get out there, I would. And let's see. I guess that's all I've got there. Like I say, I may be missing some, but at least it gives you some idea of Hamfest that do kind of cater towards the VHFer. Go ahead, Jim. This is something else that changing the subject a little bit. Several of us here in the DFW area have the 122 gig rigs. These are the Australian rigs, the VK rigs, and Jim and Paul there have worked out exceptionally long in terms of DX. I think it's what 10 kilometers, Jim, or it's at least that, I think.
17.
17. And Scott and I have worked all the way across Lake Lavon at about 3 kilometers. And but we would like to probably have a workshop or some sort of a get together. I'd like to compare our rigs with Jim and Paul's, and maybe we can have a get together. It'd be nice if other folks that had the rigs could actually finish them up. And it's not too complicated of a thing to do. It does get a little wiry, if you will, depending on what functions you want to have. But I know Ross K5ZSJ has some. I think Bob Strickland and also Jim Hudson. So we need to be thinking about, maybe it's a couple of things. Maybe it's a build session and it's locally, and do that. But I'd like to make some contacts over 1 or 2 kilometers, or at least over a path long enough that we can make some signal to noise ratio comparisons. I've used my KX3 and PX3 in the past to kind of look at the changes in gain between two antennas, and I think something like that would be very informative. Even just just to take the rig and the antenna, and somebody transmits from a common transmitter, and we all try to receive it, and we take a look at the signal to noise ratio on a common IF. So that's what I propose. So you guys that have the rigs that would like to finish them up, get in touch with Jim or I, and maybe we can set up something, a workshop session. We probably should do that first, but then I know I would like to try some further DX contacts with Jim and Paul and Scott. So keep that in mind. Go ahead, Jim. All right, now to talk about the beacons. I know some of this is kind of old. I wish things have kind of slowed down an awful lot here. We were originally going to go up and work on the beacons last spring, and some family things came up. So it was put off, and then we were going to do it on January 23rd, I think it was. And of course, that was a day it was raining cats and dogs and on the verge of freezing that weekend. So that was canceled. But we're also, we always try to work that out with the Denton Amateur Radio Club. They are our ticket to the top of that building. And because certain people have done certain things up there on top of the building, they really don't like just leaving us alone up there. um, for obvious reasons. So we'll do the best we can in terms of trying to get up there when we can. I did add one beacon to this list. It's in between the two yellows. It's Greg's AA5C's beacon. It's on 2305.0, and it's at his home, 1 watt, Alfred slot, 40 feet, and it's got a nice strong signal. So keep that in mind up at 2305. Let's go on to the next slide, Jim. All right, so again, this is the work to be done at TWU. It's the same slide I presented in January, but still needs to be worked on. We had a problem with the 10 meg reference, I think, that feeds the 432, 902, and 1296 beacons. Apparently was modulating it, and you can kind of still hear that. It's not the end of the world, but it's not correct. We have to pull a 3456 beacon because it's not legal anymore, and install the new 3400 beacon, which Greg McIntyre worked on, and pull the 2304 beacon and see what happened to it. It was kind of working one day and dead the next. And last I checked, it's still not there. And as I'll show you in the next picture, and you might as well go on to the next picture. This is where our beacons are. They're out on this railing, if you will. And back when I was younger, it wasn't too difficult to kind of walk out there and sit on those things. The last time I was out there, I brought myself a 3x3 foot piece of wood so I can put my butt on it and not kind of slide through. But it's in my mind, it's like too far out for us old farts to kind of shinny out there and do the work. And I know we had them out there for a reason. You know, nobody could necessarily bother them unless they were adventuresome. But I think we need to kind of move them in closer to the railing. And I think there's plenty of room there, and everybody respects everybody else's equipment. And I think it's mainly the Denton Club that's up there. So, we're on their side, so to speak. So I would like to see us kind of move them in a little bit. And at the same time, put the beacons that Jim's been working on 24 and 47 up there as well. And they seem to have gotten a pretty good shakeout at ground level. So let's see. I think is that the last slide, Jim? Okay. You want me to talk about this right now? Okay.
Yeah, might as well.
Okay. Due to the generosity of David N5FU, we're going to be meeting at his location on March 14th. For those of you that don't know David, he's been at a couple of our meetings over there in Capel, but he's also an attendee at the lunch that we have. And he's got a microwave rig. He's got an IC905, so we need to work him. He's not that far away from me, so I'd like to get him in the log. But he has a home. It's in the North Dallas area that's got a hangar out back, and he's offered to let us meet there. So if you go on to the next slide. This gives you the general idea of where it is. If you're in Plano and you go out West Park, it's on the other side of what is that? Preston, I think. So it's in the North Dallas area. And if you go on to the next slide, you get some idea of how it is in the DFW area. It's kind of North Dallas up in this area right here. So it's a little bit further out than where we were in Richardson before, but it's still quasi centrally located. We just cover such a big area. It's kind of going to be hard to keep everybody happy. The address is 6335 Stinson Street in Plano, and we'll give you more information on that as we go forward. So next slide, please. This is the front of David's house. The large garage door you see over to the left goes out to his hangar, and you kind of see a glimpse of the hangar from the back. And I think if the weather is good, you should be able to park on his driveway or in the bar ditch. There's a bar ditch out there, and you could probably get 3 columns of 4 cars. to park here without too much of an issue. There are carpooling options, and I'll show those on the next couple of slides if you go on. Yeah, this is the remote parking that is at the beginning of his development, if you will. You can see the asphalt over there to the left. It's an unpaved. I'm not even sure if it's part of the city or not. It's just like our own little area with this is Air Park North is what it is. So you could park here. There's also on the other corner to the left, there's a strip mall. So if really things get rough in terms of parking, you can always park there, probably very secure, and then carpool down. He's only maybe, I don't know, quarter mile, half a mile south of where my car is parked right there. Go ahead, Jim. All right. Definitely grab something to eat beforehand. Bring a drink. There's full facilities there, obviously, but bring your own drink is probably the best thing to do. And bring your own chair or chairs and a lightweight table if you have them. I've got several plastic tables that fold up that I can easily put in my Jeep, and I've also got 4 or 5 chairs. The bridge chairs, if you will. So bring a chair for yourself, if nobody else, and as they say, pop a squat when you get there. But most important, please attend, and we appreciate it. I think that's the last one, Jim.
I wrote a note here just so that I don't forget. I'm sure I would not be allowed to forget, but I've got, I think it's 4 padded chairs, folding chairs, and at least 2 of I'm going to say they fold out to 5 feet, maybe 6 feet, but plastic tables. So I'll plan to bring those. And yeah, anybody else that has plans to attend, please try to acquire your own chair. And if you have a table, that will add to it. Here's some more announcement. As Al mentioned, the 24 gigahertz beacon that just got put up on a tower, and that 10 digit is located or is indicated right there. EM13 Sugar Fox 89 Tango Bravo. And that beacon, I observed it as a rover. I forgot to tune for it until I got to my last location, so it was quite a distance away. But I did observe it in the waterfall and could turn away from it and see it come back in the waterfall.
Hey, Jim,
next,
can I make a comment on that, on the beacon?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the beacon worked fine on the ground. It was T9, and he put it up the tower, which I think has 80 or 100 foot of wire, and it started to develop what I call a whoop-de-doo. It's a chirp, and I think the problem is this is an on-off keyed beacon, so the change in the current between key up and key down is quite substantial. And I'm thinking of E equals LDI dt. The current is at the rate that the CW is being ID'd, and it's causing some effects. I guess it's kind of like a back EMF off a diode, and that's making it tough for one or both regulators. There's a regulator on the bottom, and regulator upstairs, and I think they're both switching. I don't see one of Greg's here on frequency. I don't see him.
I didn't see him.
That's the problem that he's experiencing right now. But he just bought a high voltage, relatively high voltage power supply. So we figure with switchers, the higher the voltage downstairs, the less current and the less of a voltage drop going up the tower. but just kind of ironic, even with a different LO, it's got the same issue. So it may be a pull in the 10 gig or 10 meg reference. But anyway, I appreciate the work that he's done on the beacon, and looking forward to seeing that thing just get up there and stay T9 the whole time. But thank you, Greg.
Yes, agreed. The next is a story about how we were able to help another club. And it's interesting. If you're on Slack here on our NTMS channel, you probably know every bit of this. But for those of you that aren't aware of what took place, this is just very recent happening. At the Hamfest, the Cowtown Hamfest last month, Mike Barnett, who is the Cowtown Amateur Radio Club, I call him the operations guy. He does all that work that, somebody ultimately has to do. Plus, he really helped us out the last couple of years in terms of AV tune-ups and, getting going right as we do our presentations at the Hamfest. But anyway, he came up. He had told me they were having trouble with Wi-Fi interference, and he came up while we were talking, Al and myself, and went over the story again with us. And Al came away from that saying, I think I've got some filters. Let's see what we can do to help them. So they were, I see I've misspelled international, but anyway, they were having some interference at 2412, which is the lowest channel of Wi-Fi in that band. And their description was that it appeared to be suppressing the front end of their LNA sufficient that the gain was reduced to a point that they could not lock on to the ISS video signal. So a 2 gig filter was procured from Kent. And with help from Al Ward and Mott's KD5 Fox Delta X-ray, who is basically a superb machinist and has the right equipment to do work and this type and other types. The filter was tuned to 2395 and installed in the Cowtown ISS receive system.
Quick question. Do you know anyone else who's looking at doing this? Because I have a second filter, which is now also optimized at the same frequency.
Well, I don't know of anyone can, but I think that Cowtown and Mike they're going to become kind of a focal point for others and that are trying to do this. So he, we should relay that to him, but I don't know how much he wants to broker that kind of thing or that kind of information. But if he could let us know, we could take care of it too. More to come in this story here. This is Mott's spectrum analyzer, and he's got a sweeper in this, and you can see the marker kind of down 30 from this right edge of the beginning of the skirt, a little ripple across the center, and then 30-ish down here. I think it says 30.41. So anyway, around 30 down. You can see these skirts are very nice and steep. And this was after he had machined, I believe it was 3 of the poles, the 3 poles in the center. He had removed 1 millimeter, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mats. And here we are on the roof of the clubhouse. I'm a member of Cowtown. I was happy to help them. A little bit scary for the first time for a 74-year-old man going down some dark corridors and having to climb up a straight up ladder, with rungs on it, kind of like a tower climb. But I got up there okay with their help. and just was able to look at the first scans once Mike had put the filter in place. So on the left-hand picture, that is Mike Barnett, K Fox 5 Delta Echo Yankee, and you can see some downtown Fort Worth buildings in the far left picture. There's a couple that are even taller, slightly off the picture. And there's one other horizon blocker, and it's over here to the right. I'm not even sure. If you're there, you can tell that it's higher than the dish. But however, they're expecting to get signal acquisition very low, like 15 degrees, relatively speaking, very low. So in this picture to the left, you can see they've got a cross pole, looks like 2 meter, or maybe that's 432 Yagi, and then a box about head height here on their mast that houses some of the equipment. It'll house the power supply and maybe some of the rotation components. It's a long run. I know that, probably over 100 feet from this point to where the control room for the clubhouse is located, which it just looks like, a ham shack. On the right here, this is Mike putting, he's probably winding all the electrical tape off of the LNA. It's a relatively new installation. He did show me a PVC pipe he intended to encapsulate everything in, but they just kind of recently put this up. There is some kind of an HF antenna system on this mast back further down the roof. There's several masts on the roof total. Here's a close-up of the feed. It's Cooney LNA. Kind of, he said you can't get it anymore. So I take that to be with Cooney, I wouldn't render an opinion. It's just not available anymore. And then I made note that the LNA is powered from a bias T on the RF output port. The dish is a 1.2 meter wire mesh from RF ham design. And the Azel rotor is a SPID. So here you can see the cover has been taken off of the LNA, and some black electrical tape unwound, and as he prepared to put the filter up next. And here's the filter. You see it in both pictures. It's tie wrapped on temporarily. Weather was good. I think they left it out that night because there wasn't any prediction for rain or inclement weather. And then he went back the next morning. So this was the first look. I don't have the prior plot that shows the problem of the ISS signals depressed in this belly of this plot. But you see two frequencies down here because there's a down conversion factor, 900 something megahertz. But the 2395, this is going to be where the ISS signal will appear on a pass. And then you can see what a remnant of this 2412 Wi-Fi signal over to the right. And you might theorize that that is 30 down from where it was. This was the first look that we got while we were on the rooftop, although that was a remote gained picture that was on Mike's phone of this screen. Then we went down and in the shack here directly, you can see it. And then came the ISS, came overhead, and we were able to see this very strong color bar based signal from the ISS. So mission accomplished. I wondered whether, over time, as they move that dish and they change its side lobes, directions, et cetera, that there might be some additional opportunity to improve. But so far, talking back and forth with Mike over the last week, they are very happy with the improvement in performance. And then at the bottom here, just today, Al and I were talking, and he suggested that we ask Mike about doing a presentation, and he immediately replied that he would be happy to do that, probably at the March meeting, and that they are getting some basically worldwide exposure over their system. So that goes back, Kent, to what you were saying, is that I think Mike will tell us when he's here in the when he's presenting, but I believe he said this was the only or the first stateside system of its type. Now that might mean the SDR or some components are unique, but he's pretty humble, and for him to say it's the first of its kind is an interesting statement, to say the least.
Jim, is there a plan to put that filter in a box?
Yes. It was just temporarily lashed up there to go take these readings and watch the ISS signal. He's got some adapters he wants to replace. He had a couple that looked like they came from Amazon. There's some coax jumpers they want to replace so they can get a little better quality. And he had a piece of PVC that was, I'm going to say it was 6-inch OD and about 18 inches long with caps on both ends. He said that was what they were going to mount the LNA and the filter in.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, PVC is not, forever lasting, but for that next step, I think that's his plan.
Filter number 2 is all SMA. And what day is the March meeting?
Second Saturday. I believe it's the 14th, just like it was this, because we got 28 days in February, which would give us even weeks.
Okay, just confirming, because the first Saturday is Irving.
Okay. Is first Saturday is the Irving Hamfest or the meeting?
Hamfest.
Okay. Yeah, we usually try to attend that. Anyway, Mike was like a kid in the candy store when we came down and this started happening. Even when he just saw the plot, he was extremely happy. He grinned ear to ear, said thank you 100 times. So I'm relaying those thanks to Kent and Al and Motts for making the thing happen. I want to mention this before we get to the technical program, but in the QST, the February QST 2026 issue, there were contest reports both for 10 gigahertz and up and also in 222 and up. So I think it's notable here to mention that Pat led the pack in the 10 gigahertz only category. And then Keith, WB5ZDP, Chip, N6 Charlie Alpha, 85JK is Aaron in Oklahoma City, and K5MNZ is a new rover that is out of Hamilton, and Whiskey 5 Zulu Charlie Alpha, that's Matt, and he has moved from DFW out to Brownwood. In 10 gigahertz and up, not surprising, Al Ward took the top position. I think he beat his score of last year also. And then I was a distant second, along with my partner, KI5EMN. And then Scott was next, and then Greg, and then Paul Perryman. So nice showing in Area 5. These were the complete results for Area 5. Then on the very next page, again, February 2026, ARRL QST. is some notable standouts from NTMS members who participated in 222 megahertz and up distance contest. Leading all rovers nationwide was Pat, Whiskey 5 Victor Yankee, with 65,810 points, which is 10,000 points ahead of the next contender. Regional leaders included Unlimited Rover, Whiskey 5 Victor Yankee, Pat again, and single operator Brad, Whiskey Queen 5 Sierra. Congratulations, Brad. Then Best DX by Bands was led by the outstanding 1,603 kilometer contact by Brad WQ5S with W7JW. And Scott AA5AM led the 24 gigahertz Best DX category. So these guys are religious about contests and consistent about turning in logs. Just to cover a couple of upcoming month activities, I wanted to encourage anyone that wants to ride along to get a hold of me or Al for the March 7th activity day. This is a way that we've introduced a lot of folks to, roving activity. And you're welcome to ride along. You might get a lunch out of it and learn something. You can also give a hand with a couple of things. Then March 14th, we've talked about, that'll be an in-person meeting at David's place. We will have more to say and announce about that event. April, we have our activity day and NTMS meeting scheduled dates, and then the Central States VHF Society spring sprints take place on 2, 1 1/4, and 70 centimeters. And then we have a tentative date scheduled for the 122 gigahertz testing on April 24th. In May, we have our activity days again, and then we have the NTMS meeting with the Central States 902 and above spring sprint wedged in there. And then there's a 6-meter spring sprint at May 9th, that corresponds the same time. But I think the timing is such you could do both. You could come to the meeting. You could also work the 6-meter sprint. These are some of our perpetual activities. We show this slide every meeting. The 2-meter net, 6-meter hoot owl net, that's still going on. Owl W5RLG calls that at midnight on Saturdays. Then the NTMS lunch, I think, is exhibiting a growth spurt. Have that going on every Tuesday at 11:30 at Texas Smokehouse Barbecue, Richardson. And then these activity nights, and then, of course, the MAD dates. And so I'm going to stop there and bring up the other presentation we have before we close out on the agenda sheet. I'm going to have to put my glasses on here. Yeah, some questions were asked about the little dish that was in the page that we started the meeting off with. This is called the K4QF Trojan dish, and I'm going to take you through the build that I did with it. It was a fun project. Sometimes we need a break from something complex and way out there that we're working on. And it's good that we do those things, those other projects, but I wanted a break, and this gave me that break. So Ben, he's online with us here today, but this is a picture of him at Microwave Update. He brought the dish in his carry-on luggage on his flight to Microwave Update in Tucson last year. The dish is lightweight, and it has some gain and directivity. It's perfect for backpacking or a quick fix, and that's Ben's terminology. And I put it on my weak signal source and stuck it out at the end of the driveway, and it made my weak signal pretty loud. Definitely louder than the other antenna that I use on it, which is a 10 dB attenuator screwed onto the output. Here's the bill of materials, not very long. There's a picture there to the left from a slightly different angle, and it looks like there's a demi transverter behind the dish, along with the ubiquitous 3-port SMA relay. So you get an 8.5-inch diameter clamp light at Home Depot, some brass if you don't already have it. That's 16 thousandths. I could cut it with Fiskar scissors. A chunk of copper pipe. I actually had some here, but if you have to go buy 2 foot, it's $3.36 at the Burleson Home Depot. You need a pipe cap and you need a pipe coupler. You definitely need a pipe coupler. I didn't understand that at first about the directions, but you do need it. It's very important. So there are like 4 pages of directions. With Ben's permission, I'll put the instructions on the NTMS website under this meeting so that they're a separate item that you could look at. So it all starts with cutting off a 3.6-inch length of 3/4-inch pipe. I had a pipe cutter. This circular paper template is in the directions. So I cut that out and mounted a brass. Well, I just placed a brass sheet onto a wood block, and then I taped the template onto the brass, and that's a punch on the left. I just punched some holes to locate them. And then I transferred the center hole dimensions to the brass sheet using these tools. I drilled a starter hole sufficient so I could get the nibbler in there. And by now the brass sheet is screwed down to the wood block. With a Sharpie, I scribed lines on a brass sheet per these dimensions. So not hard to do. Yeah, you really don't have to even measure them out. Just make sure you get the right number of lines or thereabouts. The length of it's kind of important because of the way that it wraps around the coupler. So I wouldn't make it too much longer than 3.1 or too much shorter than 3.1. And here's where it goes. It is being wrapped around the coupler. The coupler has been slid over the feed horn, which is 3/4-inch copper pipe. And there's a hose clamp that's keeping it steady for the solder job. And here's the solder job of I call it the flange with fingers, or the finger flange, to the coupler. Now the coupler will still slide on the feed horn 3/4-inch copper pipe. And then the flange fingers are soldered to the reflector to waveguide brass. So that piece of brass that was cut out from a pattern, those fingers get soldered to it. I used some wood blocks, and they got to smoking a little bit, but they didn't set off the smoke detector. My wife didn't come running with the fire extinguisher. And now I thought this was a reminder of how, simple you can do things like this with geometry, and where dimensional accuracy is not, I would say 2,000th accuracy, more like 10,000ths, maybe even 20,000th. But just taking a sheet of paper, a strip of paper, and marking one side of the pipe cap with a tiny mark and marking the paper with a tiny mark, and then wrapping the paper around it and making another mark, taking the paper off, folding it in half, you get the everything you need. So on the left, that's going to be where the 440 bolt that will go through, will be threaded and go through, that will become our tuning bolt. And on the right, where the price tag is still there, that's going to be our hole for the SMA probe. Locating the SMA probe center was a certain distance, .405 from the edge of the pipe cap. So that's kind of a important dimension. I marked it on the price tag that was still on the pipe cap. And then I took this over and using a drill chuck, I drilled a hole. And then on the right side, this is something I saw Mott's do for the first time, and just put the tap into the drill chuck and just turned it by hand while applying a little down pressure on the quill. And so after threading in the 440 bolt in the left-hand picture, flip it over and drill the starter or pilot hole for the SMA probe. And then we're going to need to drill a 5/32 hole for the SMA insulator to fit down in. And we're going to use the nibbler to clear out portions of the pipe cap to allow the body of the SMA connector. Yeah, this is a terrible solder job, but you're just trying to get it stuck. And so there's the SMA connector soldered onto the 3/4 inch feed horn between the slot in the pipe cap, which is performing the backstop. You fit all this back into the black component that comes with the reflector. Now there's a gap in there. I found that I had to shim that. I could not find thin enough PVC that Ben talked about, but I did find some very small plastic inserts. That was just something that was left over around here. The radius bend wasn't quite perfect, but I just put 2 pieces of it on the 3/4 inch pipe and then used the hose clamp and left it there a couple of days. And it was just fine after that. So I shoved that down in that gap, and that gave me a tight fit for the 3/4 inch pipe. Just perfect. I'm sure there's other things that could be done there, but this is, again, not the most critical of dimensions. And there is the completed unit. So the 3/4 inch feed horn is pushed through where it's about 1/8 of an inch in front of this waveguide reflector brass piece that's there to center. And then I just tacked it with some solder. I was able to do some return loss measurements on the rig, and the tuning bolt with the best measurement from the nut to the bottom of the bolt head was .1625 inches. The return loss tuned from 25 to 26 dB with the bolt turned from all the way in to the best measurement, which I specified earlier. The return loss varies a small amount depending on what you point the dish at, but it's right at 26 dB. The measurement on the power meter is after calibration and specifying a ref value. So here it is. I call it like David and Goliath, but it's a cute little dish, and it provided about a 4 S-unit difference. I didn't do any more elaborate measurements that day. I was hungry, and this was the last stop, and I wanted to get a quick test on it and then jump in a car and drive the 2 hours home.
Hey, Jim.
Sure.
What do you think the F over D is on the dish? It's pretty deep, isn't it?
Yeah. It's well, I've got it right here. I will say it's 4 inches deep and 8.5 diameter is 8.5 is about 4 inches deep. Maybe 4.5.
I wonder if you'd have more gain if you used it as a horn.
Well, I saw it as a chance to share with some newcomers that you can build something like this with hand tools and get on the air. Of course, really, the feed horn itself. I wanted to build a second one that was just nothing but the feed horn, and then compare that so I could understand what the shroud of the dish was doing to focusing the signal. But I ran out of time, and the feed horn alone is going to have some gain. In fact, when I was out there at East Pilot Point, and I actually disconnected the SMA coax from my dual band feed, and I pulled it away, I could still hear the beacon on my radio. So I've seen that happen before, where you've got enough signal concentrated by the aperture of that big dish that it's just streaming out of that feed horn. Well, the same thing happened when I got I got the coax near the small dish. I started getting coupling there from the end of the coax to the feed horn of the small dish. So I've seen that happen before. So there's obviously some gain there to be had, and then it increases as you couple to this SMA port. All stuff we've seen. Comments, Ben?
Yes, I do have a comment. First, to find the center of the interface, you use a turbo transfer the boat to the center. I was a little bit more rude. I just did diagonal between the. I had 4 screw holes, tabs, and I did diagonal, and where diagonal between the screw holes crossed, that was my center. So I knew needs a tool for that movement. And then when I got this, I had my weak source at the edge of the woods and slid the feed in and out. See I could optimize where the output of feed was in the fluctuator, and it was pretty close, right at the end of the interface. Then I locked down it and then compared the gain this end to my 16D North Standard gain horns, 812 gigahertz. I had about 4 dB more gain with the antenna than I had of the North horn. Somebody else measured it at 22 dB gain, so it's probably somewhere 17, 18, 20 dB, something like that. But I look into more circular horn than I do a dish. It's more like a horn. And admittedly, the shape of it not optimum, but for price you can beat it. And I first tried to do this, I thought, well, a horn would have straight sides instead of a surface like this surface. So first tried it with the full instead of clamping it. At about 3 dB, just get with the funnel, I had this surface.
I don't know if it's just me, but I'm having some trouble hearing you, Ben. I was doing some lip reading, and I think I got most of what you said. Can you tweak your audio, or
can you hear me now?
That's much better.
Okay, well, I'm a cell phone. I picked up and got closer to like a self. But anyway, I first tried this. The control was great since the surface. So I got a 3 bit less.
Starting to get choppy again, Ben.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what to next.
Maybe turn off your video.
Well, I can turn my video. Let me try that.
Yeah,
Okay. Have that.
that might be better. When you say just a couple of words, it sounds good, but it's when you start a sentence that starts to chop up. Why don't you give it a go?
Okay. Well, that must be the NTS K4QF filter circuit kicking in.
Now it's better.
No, okay. Well, I've got the video turned off. When I first tried this, I tried doing it with a straight-sided funnel instead of a curved surface, but I got about 3 dB less gain with the funnel than I did the curved surface on the horn. And I had two purposes in this antenna. One was something you could put in the suitcase and haul with you with carry-on luggage, like if you guys want to take an antenna on a rig up to the microwave update in Rochester and you're going to fly up there, you can put it in carry-on luggage. And the other purpose was to put it in a backpack, because we've got some locations that are very good locations, but they're about a half a mile to a mile from the parking lot. So I needed something small and lightweight to get to the operating position location.
Looks like the F over D is 0.28.
Well, I guess it is what it is. Maybe I could send an email to the Chinese that made the reflector and request a change. I'm sure it was made in China, but anyway, it's lightweight and inexpensive and has some gain. Oh yeah, and on the feed itself, the piece of copper water pipe, I read online that an open end of a circular waveguide would have about 5 to 6 dB gain just by itself.
Okay.
So, any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. The without a scalar ring on that copper pipe, it is optimum for F over D's down around 0.3. Real low ones, 0.3 to 0.35. So it's being fed
Nice.
Ballpark.
Well,
Proper.
that's not too far off.
Nah.
Right.
And for $15, you can't beat the price.
Well, mine costs 25 because things are more expensive over here.
Well, you ought to get online. Get them on. Yeah, I think I saw one of these reflectors online for $10.
Oh, yeah. Well, the stack that they had over at Home Depot the day I went over there, because I got to drive into town to get to there. So, that's, we got to get Mama loaded up in the truck and make sure she's got her ice water and, plan the outing. But every single one of the reflectors had a dent, a little bump in the same place. So I don't know if that's a picker on the, in the assembly process that's grabbing it. And it was not a puncture, but it was a little like some kind of a dome object had hit it. And you can see it in this picture. It's about 5 o'clock.
I had one reflector that I bought that had a dent like that. It looked like someone had pressed too hard with their thumb, but I was able to push it back out.
Yeah, the material's very thin, so it probably can be. But my luck, I'd take the tappy tap tap hammer to it and ruin the thing. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting little project. I wish we had, new guys and gals crawling all over us every day wanting to do something, because this would be something that pretty much anybody could do with basic skills. And for that matter, we could punch out some kits and say, here, go do the final assembly. Because, well, you might not want to recommend a torch be in the equation, but you could put a little build party together and, have one person doing the torch work. It was fun. It works. And I would love to hand it off to somebody else and say, here's your 10 gigahertz rover system. Get out there and compete with others that have this same antenna or bigger ones.
One of the
Anyway,
forums.
That's my presentation. Did you have more, Ben?
Yes, one of the forums at the Huntsville Ham Fest is the youth forum, where they teach youth how to solder with surface mount components and build different kits and things like that. And this might be a good project for them, is to build a 10 gigahertz antenna. And then, of course, immediately after the Ham Fest on Saturday, we go across the street to the parking garage and work some TV scatter all over the county. And so they could build a dish like this and take it up to the parking deck and test out the fruits of their labor there. But I've used this little antenna off of the TV towers for TV scatter, and it seemed to work just fine. Of course, it's got a broader beam width than my 18-inch DSS dish, but it's not as bulky and not as heavy, so it's something you can take with you.
Well, you could see an extension of this project being that teaching newcomers how to build the 10 gig feed horn with a scalar ring and just use it as a feed for prime focus.
Yeah.
Because the real need for accuracy is down there at that pipe cap end, getting the probe at the right distance from the backstop, and a tuning screw on the other side. I think that's probably the most important dimensional piece that's in the project, other than making sure that the feed horn is centered in the reflector. But even then, it wouldn't be real critical on that.
Yeah, and one other thing I did on the back of the reflector, you could see is it a phenolic ring where the light bulb and the clamp lamp mounted? I drilled 3 small holes in the diameter on the back side. Yeah, right there on that phenolic ring.
Yeah.
I took
right
the clamp lamp part off and I drilled. I think just one small hole would do it, but I put a wood screw through that so I could slide the feed all the way in to make it smaller to go in a suitcase. And then when I slid it out all the way out, I could tighten that wood screw through that phenolic ring and clamp it in place.
Yep, I follow. Well, okay, that's all I've got. There's some folks here that might have some other technical projects they could share with us, because I don't have much more to go here. We've got half a dozen slides or so that pertain to our business meeting and some other stuff. Does anyone else want to tell us what they're doing?
I will make one more comment, not related to this antenna, on something that we're doing here. You're aware of our effort to go down to Mount Cheehaw to a grid corner down there and
Yes.
get some people with VUCCs over the last couple of weeks. Tom, K4RXR, and myself have gone down there just to do a site visit, and just from looking on Google Maps and the profile, we had picked out 5 sites. Well, we went down there to do a site visit, and it turned out that 4 out of the 5 sites were not acceptable for one reason or another. Most of them with foliage. So we went back down yesterday, and we've got all 5 sites identified, and did a path profile, and made sure they would be acceptable, and then looked at the foliage and made sure that the foliage was not going to be an issue. So then I guess our next effort is to take some equipment down there, and we did go up over Cheehaw Mountain and go up to the stone tower at the top of Cheehaw, and it turns out that stone tower is not as useful as I remembered it 15 years ago when I worked on a microwave link up there, because the trees have grown up, and in some direction the trees were in the path yesterday when we were down there, and the leaves aren't even out. So I don't think we can use that stone tower, but they do have an overlook that looks to the north, and we walked out there 3/10 of a mile, and it's a wooden boardwalk. So if you're in a little motorized scooter or a wheelchair or something, you can still drive out there to the overlook and see 4 of the grids to the north down around Gadsden. You do not have a view to the south, but we did locate a location in the south for the 5th grid, and so in the next week or two, we're going to take some gear down there and test out just doing some TV scatter from the 4-corner grid on the north side and the 5th grid on the south side. And when I say gear, I'm talking about 10 gigahertz equipment, because we're just now getting some people to get on 24 gigahertz, and I don't know if any of them would want to go down with us. I hope they will, but anyway, I think we've got it worked out so that we can go down there and people can pick up a VUCC on the microwave bands in one day, and that's our plan, is to hang some wallpaper.
Yep. Did you say that from the overlook, not the stone tower, but the overlook, does it have clear line of sight to 4 grids?
Yes, it does. The four grids from Cheehaw Mountain north to Gadsden are clear line of sight. It's about 40 miles up there, but it's clear line of sight to not just the grid corner, but in conjunction with we first were looking at this to get some VUCCs, and then I thought, well, maybe we can combine it with a microwave contest and find 4 locations in those 4 grids that are 10 miles apart, so people can go down and work on a VUCC, and they can also roll from grid to grid to grid for the microwave contest. And so from that overlook, you have line of sight to both of those situations, the grid corner and then the 4 sites we picked out in those 4 grids.
Okay, let me ask a question this way. The grid that you're standing in at the overlook, is that grid one of the 4 that you're counting that you have line of sight to?
Well, yes, except from the overlook, if you look right down 10 miles to the north, is Anniston on Interstate 20. And so we thought, to save time and not have to drive up on the mountain, we could put an operator down there at Anniston that would be in that 4th grid, but that's in the same grid as the top of Cheehaw Mountain.
Okay. I wanted to be sure that you knew that you could count that grid by just working somebody at the minimum distance required, but it sounds like you've planned to cover that grid.
Yes. In fact, we had to move just on the south side of Gadsden, about 6 or 8 miles, is a ridge that essentially runs east and west, and you've got to get on the south side of that ridge to have line of sight up to the top of Cheehaw Mountain. But Cheehaw Mountain's in the same grid as that 4th grid up there near Gadsden.
Okay.
Jim, I can tell
I
you a
saw
little.
your email with the path profiles, so I'll follow up and talk to you a little bit more about this.
Okay, well, I look forward to that.
Bob, do you have something?
I can show you a little bit on this project I'm working on that I think I mentioned it at Cowtown, but I'm
Okay.
making a little bit of progress if you're interested.
Yes, sir. You can take over.
I'll share the screen here with this. I think it'll share. So this is a schematic of all it is a reference oscillator. And so the thing is to use this oscillator from mini circuits. They refer to this group of parts as the big deal. And it's a programmable oscillator that you can set the voltage here to program the output. And it'll cover a pretty wide range, but I've written it as 1145, but it could be set to different frequencies. And the concept is going to be to come in and provide a regulated voltage to hopefully keep it at a steady level. But the program voltage here that's needed will can go up to like 12 or 13 volts, depending on what frequency you want out of it. And then I've got this circuit planned out here that essentially what it's going to do is provide temperature stability. And so this transistor right here is being used for a temperature reference. So as temperature changes, it'll change at a particular rate or have a certain slope. And then the op-amp circuit's used to adjust the slope of that curve to tune the slope so that at a given temperature, this or over temperature, the oscillator would stay on frequency or as close as possible. And so I built a small PC board. It's a little bigger than 3/4 of an inch, and I'm about to expand it a little bit to make it bigger. Because initially I didn't include this capacitor here, coupling capacitor, and I need a little bit more space to sneak that guy in. And it looks like it's functioning like it's supposed to work. But the other piece of this now is to be able to test this temperature compensation and tune it. And the whole idea is to not have to use GPS reference, just have it turn on and be somewhere close to frequency, hopefully right on frequency. But to really understand how well this works, I need to check this over temperature. So I've also built another PC board that's capable of adjusting the temperature. Like if I make a little styrofoam box is my plan, and put some resistors in there. They're like 10 ohm resistors and have a feedback circuit that's just going to regulate temperature inside that box. And then I can characterize this board over temperature and find out what I need to do to tune my resistor network here to get the slope exactly right to make the thing stay on frequency. And then in concept, it could be run at, say, 40 degrees centigrade and not have to really vary, but then you have to keep it on all the time, which may be the best option anyway. But I was just trying to make a simple reference oscillator that could be multiplied up and used at microwave bands. So any questions on any of that or comments?
What would be your goal for stability?
Well, that's a complicated question. I guess it depends on which frequency I end up trying to multiply up to. But I guess I don't want to say exactly how stable it's going to be. It's going to be whatever this mini circuits oscillator is capable of in the long run.
But that is a free running oscillator.
Yes. Yeah, this would be just a simple oscillator. anyway, that's what I have going on here. One of my projects anyway, that and the temperature PC board, temperature control setup is the other piece of this.
Yeah, interesting.
Of course, you could also couple in a GPS lock to that, add some more circuitry and do the GPS aspect on it if that was an option that you wanted to go do. Use that oscillator, that mini circuits oscillator for your base oscillator.
It's interesting. Right, I will resume where we were here. Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, just working on a few winter projects.
Just getting bits of your audio.
Maybe I should drop it then. You hear me okay, or should I just quit?
Yeah, can hear you just fine.
Okay. Been working on a few projects. My partner in crime, KVAU down in Ann Arbor, about an hour and a half from me, have been working on trying to get a couple infrared LED stations working. So I think we're going to try to get together and do some work together on it. We've been working independently. And yeah, we're working on that, trying to resurrect 5760 from surplus parts. A couple of us have tossed around the idea of maybe microwave activity day and maybe trying to see who around's got 5.7 gig working and see if we can't try to get some activity on that band. A few people haven't made contacts in years. I know I haven't. So anyway, that's a couple of the things going on here anyway.
Great.
I have a request, Jim.
Go ahead.
Yes, last week I got my 24 gigahertz transverter off of the shelf where it's been sitting for 10 years. I got from Pyro Joe, and one missing piece I have, it takes a half LO frequency of 11.88 gigahertz input, and I need a 10 megahertz reference signal to generate the LO frequency for that thing. So if someone has a design already worked out, I'd like to get a copy of that so I can proceed with putting that N wave transverter on with 1 watt on 24 gigahertz. And of course, immediately my next step will be to see if I can construct a Trojan antenna for that for 24 gigahertz.
So what was the frequency? 11 point what?
11.88 gigahertz with a 10 megahertz reference input.
Well, this sounds very close to what we did for the 47 gigahertz beacon. And that consists of well, in our case, we used a Cooney LO, but you could do it with a Digi LO. In fact, the next build that I'm going to do will go that way. So it makes use of a WA1 MBA board. Let me show it to you. Here's one. So I don't know if it's going to come, if we can get these things to focus, but it's going to be similar to the W1 gigahertz kind of style of amplify, filter, amplify, filter, amplify, but it's got a mini circuits mixer on it. So the idea here is that you go in with your IF and mix it with the LO and come out with 11.7 gigahertz, because we need 11.7 because it's going to be quadrupled to 47. So the Cadillac version is to use the Cooney LO because it comes right out at 11. You can program it. So you can program it to a frequency that once it's mixed with your your IF, it's right on the ready to be multiplied by 4. But the point here is it will amplify and tune and reject very well anything that you don't want, and it definitely will tune at 11.88. It'll go all the way from about 12 down to 8, according to the tests that we've run. So that could be a stage that would be useful. You would still have to multiply, something lower that's locked at 10 megahertz. And so one option would be a Digi-LO that is locked to a 10 meg reference that goes into a W1 gigahertz, 4 mimic, 3 tune pipe caps, and you can control, by your selection of mimic, you can control to some degree how well your multiplication occurs and what bias you need to get there. So therefore, you would go from 1104 megahertz. You multiply that up to 3400 something. Multiply that up to the 11, and then go through this final stage of very clean filtration with amplification so much that you probably have to have an attenuator when you come out of there, unless. I don't remember what you're doing with the 11. Oh, that goes into the transverter. So you probably need to attenuate it. It would be so strong.
Well, and that brings up another point. A few months ago, I bought a signal generator off of the web that goes up to 15 gigahertz, and it has a 10 megahertz reference input. I could take that and tune it to 11.88 and lock it up to my Leo Bodner 10 megahertz reference input. Now, does anyone think I could get away with that without too much phase noise out of the signal generator? It's not very big.
It depends on how it's doing its multiplication, because it's probably got quite a bit of phase noise. Do you have the equipment to check that out?
No, I do not.
Ben, can you set the SIGGEN up at 10368 and listen to it?
Yes, I can do that. It goes up to 15 gigahertz. Yeah, that's the thought.
I've been surprised at how T9 some signals can sound out of SIGGENs, but I'm running like an HP 80. Oh boy. Shoot, a 26 gigahertz HP generator, 8440 maybe. And it really doesn't sound that bad. It's kind of a fairly good T9 note, but it's usually the outside phase noise, that might not be user friendly if somebody's 10 kcs away from you. But what the heck? It's a signal. I'd listen to it at 10368 first.
I'll do that. In fact, that takes me back in history for my first 1296 mixer, which was a ring hybrid mixer with a pair of shock debarrier diodes, and Leroy W5HN. Of course, he was 8 miles away, and I told him I had a mixer running for a 1296, and I used what was that, HP? It wasn't a 608. It was some higher frequency model HP generator, and I said, I told Leroy I would use that as my LO and send me some signal, and he said, no, I don't think that'll work. But I heard him just fine. But of course his signal sounded terrible because of my signal generator. But that was my first LO, was a signal generator.
Use what you got.
Yeah. Like you said, I got a signal.
Yeah, and like one of our folks says, don't let perfect stand in the way of good enough.
Yeah, no kidding.
My signal generator was an HP 8340, I think. Gosh, why can I not remember that?
I don't
So
remember the
we've been
model
working
number.
more on the lines of trying to gain stability so that we could transmit a Q65 signal. That's what's driven us to, or driven us away from just multiplying, lower VHF frequencies, because they pick up on every multiplication step they pick up so much phase noise, and they're not that stable by the time they get on frequency. So the concept there was to keep the IF at a low frequency, lock the LO, and let it be the higher frequency, hence locked, and keep the multiplication down through the combination of the two of them, IF and LO, so that we pick up the minimum amount of phase noise to get on the RF frequency we want. That's a different application than what you're dealing with, though.
Okay,
Yeah.
8340A goes up to 26.5 gigahertz, and it's about as heavy as your SX101A.
I was going to say, that's not the thing you can cart around, right?
No.
No, this little 15 gigahertz signal generator I got doesn't have any controls. It's got a few push buttons, but you can put it in the palm of your hand.
Incredible what they're making nowadays.
Yeah, when I got my hands on my first spectrum analyzer, it was a 2-box thing. I forget the number of it, but if you didn't have a hernia when you started, you'd sure have one after you used it a while.
Anybody got anything else? Okay, then I'm going to continue here. Not too much more to go, but there's a little bit. So we've got some old business, and I wanted to go over this. It's getting easier to, I used to try to write down everything that we would carry forward to the next meeting, but nowadays AI is producing a summary at the end of our meeting, and it's incredible how accurate it is. It also captures who is speaking and identifies them in the summary. So it'll say Ben Lowe said this, Jim McMaster said, or it'll say NTMS Zoom host said this, Al Ward said this. So it's a little scary, but it makes it easier when we come to this and we can just talk about what we said last meeting. Now, this goes back to December because we had a meeting at the Hamfest that I've already covered with you. But in the old business section here, we had an ask to add a prominent notice about dues renewal on the front page. That was done. There was a request to send email to NTMS group with a clickable PayPal link for dues renewal. That was done. And then continue work on a micro grant application for February submission to Irving Radio Club. I don't know if David is here who was helping with that. If you are, can you come off mute? I didn't see him in the last scan that I looked at. So then reapply to Zoom for nonprofit rate reduction. They refused our first request. I have submitted a second request. And they employ a third party that does the surveys and research to see if you're deserving. Of course, they obtain in the initial application, they obtain our 501c filing registration number. So we'll see what comes of that. That is one of our key expenses that we have every year.
Jim,
Yes,
how much would that save us?
I think it would reduce the fee by about 40%.
Do you know why we got rejected the first time?
No.
Wow.
There was a slight event that took place, but I don't think, since they didn't tell me why, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but they send, I would call it probing emails, and they applied for membership to our group, and we rejected them because we didn't know who it was.
Yes. Hurt feelings.
Yeah. So did it affect that or did it not affect that? I couldn't tell you since they didn't tell us the reason, but we have learned that lesson and we'll try to be a little careful on this go round.
Hey, Jim, another comment. I just recently joined the HP Agilent users group for test equipment, and there are a bunch of ex guys that are in the field, plus a lot of hams. And when I applied, and this is a Groups IO thing, when I applied, I got an email from say the host, and he asked me a little bit about myself, what type of equipment I have, and kind of what you expect out of it, type of thing. So it's almost like it was a nice. We might want to consider interrogating potential new users just like that, because apparently whatever was in that canned email, he had generated it before, and it just automatically goes out, and then he reviews it. And they must be a feature in well, let's see, not for Zoom, but it's for Slack. That's what it is. But
The Slack?
I like that idea of knowing a little bit more about who's applying. I'm sorry, I got off on a tangent there from Zoom to Slack, but it's Slack related. And I thought, well, that was a nice feature to have, to learn more about the people that you're letting into your group, because we don't know who half of them are if they don't list a call. I know Scott's been kind of interrogating some of them, and I guess you have too, but just might be something we consider in the future.
Yeah, I had spent some time looking at that. Do you mean Groups IO?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go back and look. I'm a little worried that it may be a paid feature, but I'll look again.
Okay.
I made a note. That would really be good because we probably get half of the applications to Groups IO that they don't list a call sign.
Yeah.
Or it's not part of their email address. It more proper.
Yep.
Okay, this next one was for Barry. He was going to forward an email about the new 24 gigahertz control board, and he did. And I asked for ordering instructions from the guys that have those boards. They've combined some functions onto the existing design that I'd like to, become familiar with and build out a rig from it. It's not listed here, but I got an email yesterday from the SP op that has been harvesting those XP modules, and he asked me. He sent me an email direct and asked me if I wanted more modules, and I told him I wanted 3. So I think I have some here that are good. I have quite a stack that are bad, that either don't have a receive or don't have a transmit side, but I have a few good ones, and I'd like to keep collecting them so that we don't run out of ways to get on 24 gigahertz cheap. Here's some more old business. Barry asked Kent to send some Vivaldi components.
I'm pretty sure I sent them.
Okay. Well, Barry's not here, so we'll let you off the hook. And then Kent mentioned that he would help with speaker recruitment for the microwave update.
I have my cattle prod recharged.
Okay. There'll be several of us doing that. And more on that as we get time to have that set of meetings around planning. There was an ask to update the website front page with dues notices, and that was done. And then Ben has covered this, but would like to know more as he progresses. But he mentioned continued planning and coordination with the group regarding VUCC party and portable ops in Tennessee and Alabama. I've seen a lot of emails. I know Ben is working quite a bit on it, and it takes a while to do those path profiles and, consider each end and whether there's trees and look at the street views and Google Earth. I know because that's what we do when we work our own areas and looking for rover locations, etc. We mentioned a plan. This was probably with David's help, but he's not here. A plan and coordinate support for the Irving Club Fest at Bingo, including possible beacon deployment. Consider building and raffling a VHF, UHF related item to raise funds per Ben's suggestion. I personally thought on that a little bit more, and I think the next step for me there, others are welcome to join in, but I think the next step for me is to talk to the guys down at Cowtown, the other club I belong to, and just ask them what would appeal. I think everyone's got a 2-meter FM rig in their car or available, or an HT. What else would appeal aside from the ICOM 7300? I got to think about them, what's in their head, not what's in our head, because raffling off a DigiLO might work well at a conference, but it's not going to work well with guys that are in clubs that primarily work in the HF, VHF, and maybe UHF zone. Well, it might work for them. What can...
Another possibility, get various NTMS members to donate items, and we have an auction at one of the meetings.
Okay. So we donating this, no strings attached, and then we auction them at a meeting.
At an NTMS meeting? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
One step further and up on eBay does that.
Couldn't quite make you out, Mark.
Well, there's always eBay. On eBay.
Yeah.
He's got to package things up and all that.
Yeah, I like the idea of doing it from an NTMS meeting because it would probably keep it within the NTMS club.
Yeah, keep microwave stuff wherever local.
Still only getting a couple of words, Mark.
I'll be quiet.
Okay, I've made some notes along that. Then the last bullet here is solicit volunteer to pursue ARRL grant. which at the time was noted as a future action. I just really need some help because I'm busy. I'm still working 60 or plus hours a week on a full-time job until the end of May, and I just will not have time to do this justice. There's several pieces of paperwork to fill out. We need the idea. I wish that it would involve young people. You know, it branches into some other things that we've tried to establish, such as we have our group at Texas A&M that we've sponsored, but there's also University of Dallas students that, there's benefits of being associated with them, being associated with the dean there. Okay, so the new business, I wanted to throw this out again. I do have one person that has spoke up that would like to participate in this. But when I drove to Microwave Update this year, I went through Sunspot, New Mexico, which is basically Cloudcroft, 15 miles south of Cloudcroft. And I did a personal survey and spent some time with the management there, looked over the observation deck, and was able to ascertain that there are line of sight paths to 4 grid magic square, the 4 grid that come together, including the one you're standing in. That one is also one of those 4. And then back to the south towards El Paso, there's a line of sight shot to a little town called Newman. And that is right in the corner of the next grid south. So there are 5 grids. I could use some help in planning this also, because we want to have a plan to, where we would stay and how we would do these back and forth trips. But we do have some loaner equipment for this and could support anywhere from 5 to 47 gigahertz for VUCC. There's some times of the year that it's not good around El Paso due to the wind. So I'm familiar since I was born and raised there and spent the first part of my life there graduating from UTEP. So I know about the wind problem. And there's also, just by way of mention, they have an aerial tramway there. It fell into disarray. Well, basically, it just got old. I think they built it in the late 60s, and it goes from a lower elevation up to the KTSM towers, which is not the highest peak on the Franklin Mountains, but it is very high. I think we'd be trying to look for 47 gigahertz locations that are far to the north in a record attempt from the tramway landing that's up on top of the mountain. That is under new construction. I think they appropriated $30 million for it. And they expect to have part of it open this fall, but I don't get the feeling that it will be fully functional until 2027. So there's another possibility. Once you get a high spot like that, you can start looking around for other locations that are well beyond just the 100 miles or 120 miles.
Hey, Jim, at KD5, is it IKC
Yes.
that we've been conversing with? I would think that he's got a partner in crime out there. I think they both have 905s with 10.
Yes.
Do they not?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it'd be nice, if you go one way, I go the other way, and each of us take one of those guys and operates with them, and maybe helps them. That might be the best thing we could do to help people down there to keep the interest going.
Yep, I agree. He did ask to be included in the planning for something that we would do for VUCC. But yeah, spending a day or two with those guys would go a long ways, I think. They're just now building their feed horns for 10 gigahertz. I mean, this week they're working on them.
Yeah, do you have a rig for 5760?
Yes, I do.
Mine does run about 18 watts, but it's just got a frequency West brick in it. It really hasn't been modernized, but that could be done.
Well, I don't think we're going to have WSJT opportunities that we would need for that. I mean, the stability would probably be good enough with the brick in it.
Yeah, either that or I come up with a 93.6 megahertz reference. It's the old reference times 60 is 5616.
Yep. I've got I'm staring at it here. It's a 2-foot dish of prime focus, and it had a shelf on the back that was sufficient for me to bolt an extension to the shelf. And so Mott's gave me a 30-watt amp, and I've got a Demi. So that's my setup.
All right.
Going to be a big wind catcher. Is there any other new business? Okay. Anybody got anything else to show off before we jump into the final part here?
Jim, I'll just make one comment about the winds out there in the New Mexico area. When I would be working out at White Sands and stay over the weekend, I would go up to ski Apache up there, and it was a great place to ski. But the ski instructor had a new group of skiers that just got out of ski school, and so she is out there trying to teach them how to snowplow and get up when they fall down. But the winds, she had 8 or 10 people. The wind would ramp up from 0 to 40 miles an hour in about 10 seconds, and it blew them all over. And then she'd go around and get them all up vertical again. And about the time she'd get them all vertical, another burst of wind would come and blow them all over again. It was really kind of hilarious, but really high winds.
Well, the most notable thing around El Paso in those times of high wind is the sandblasting it does to your paint job.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Not to mention you if you're working out in the desert.
Yeah. And then the tumbleweeds. Because everywhere there's a chain link fence, the tumbleweeds build a wall. Because they're trapped by the fence, and they just keep going higher and higher and higher until they roll clear over like zombies climbing the wall. They are now on the other side. So,
yeah, I went to see Roy Clark. I went to see Roy Clark one time, and he said growing up as a kid, they were so poor. He told his dad he wanted a pet dog, and the dad said, we can't afford to feed it. So he got him a pet tumbleweed and tied it up to the side of the shack with a piece of calf rope and nailed it in there and said the wind would blow it and it would run around the yard, but you didn't have to feed and water it.
Yeah. But you know, the tumbleweed distributes seeds that grows more tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
All right. With nothing else there, we'll just go over to budget. I'm missing Wes today. He fell ill and let me know that he was running a fever and would not be attending. But I think we need to raise some of this. Maybe, Bob, you know, but is Zoom still just 160?
I don't know what they sent us a notice that they're going to raise the cost. So if that cost that you have there is what it was last year, it's going to go up, I guess. So
Yeah.
10% or something. I forgot the exact number.
Okay. Well, everything is on the way up. And, we have these other filings and fees. It basically boils down to a sum of $617 at these rates, and these are probably need to be bumped up. So at $20 per member, we need 31 members. And I'm just always appealing for folks to make a contribution. We also will have some expenses, even potentially with David's meeting place. There will be some possible expenses. And then we like to be in a position, and we have been in a position, to do a Spectrum Defense Fund donation to the ARRL. Every year we do a donation of some kind.
The Zoom number is going to go to 170. I just looked it up.
Okay. 170. Unless we can get the discount.
Right. So 40% off is a big deal.
Say again.
That discount is a big deal.
Yes, sir. Before I leave this, I want you to know that I'm aware with what Wes has been able to provide. There are a number of people that have made donations. Really appreciate that. And speaking of donations, we still have this PayPal item. It'll stay there on the homepage. I see it on a lot of other homepages. So K7FRY is one of them. Rainscatter.com. And that's all I've got for today. Somebody make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Al's made the motion. Anybody opposed? All right, you can hang out here if you want to. I've trying to avoid cleaning up my shop, so I probably will leave out of here before I feel guilty and start cleaning some of this up. I will stop the recording.